great to
Yeah.
connect. Thank you so much for taking a minute out.
Well, thank you, Joe, for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. Where are you located on the planet?
I'm in New Jersey.
Okay.
I'm in East Orange. It's just up Newark, I call it.
Okay, excellent. Very cool. Well, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, and obviously I should have,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I should have known that. It's Jersey Bounce is the album, so I figured as much, but I didn't want to be presumptuous. So, um, but uh, but before we get into Jersey Bounce, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed our lives, changed everything. How did you get through that time period, and how has it affected the way that you create music and live life today?
Well, I'll tell you, it was really very difficult because a lot of venues, when the pandemic hit, I remember where I was. I was in Westfield, New Jersey, at a restaurant called 16 Prospect. I had been there for 15 years, and I was getting ready to celebrate my 15th year. And then all of a sudden, the last date, and I remember exactly, March 14th, 2020, canceled. Everything was canceled. So from March of 2020, I had gigs coming up in 2021, weddings and corporate gigs, all canceled 6 months into the future. So it was very difficult for musicians and entrepreneurs and restaurants. I mean, they lost a lot of money. It was horrible. I mean, there were lives lost. So it was a miserable time in our history. Um, a lot of revenue, a lot of restaurants closed. They have not been able to recoup. Some of them, the following summer, they had outdoor festivals. They had outdoor restaurants, but that wasn't enough. And a lot of our good restaurants closed. It was really not a good time, and they still haven't actually recouped.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Let's get into Jersey Bounce. Give me an idea of what your vision for this album was.
Well, I'm a Jerseyite, and I love New Jersey. I'm a native New Jersey, Newark person, and I grew up in a home that was full of music. I started, a lot of people say to me, well, how long have you been singing? And my answer to that is, how much time do you have? And answering that question, I was about 6 years old, growing up in Newark in the church, singing in the children's choir, the young adult choir, went on tour with gospel choirs. But my mother played piano. I played violin, which I wasn't very good at. And as a result of that, the gospel influence was there. And gospel really is a part of the blues. If you think about a 12-bar blues, they're basically the same in terms of the format. And so I listened to Sarah Vaughan, I listened to Etta Jones, I listened to Carmen McRae. These are all of my mentors. And Sarah was from Newark. And I had a lot of help along the way with a lot of the older gentlemen from past generations. And they inspired me. They kind of took me under their wing and they groomed me. I played with big bands, I played with trio. So I kind of honed my craft with them and listened to their stories, sob stories, good stories, bad stories. And I kind of got integrated into what they were doing, but the music was in my soul. Jazz is something that's improvisational. It's not just reading a piece of music, it's taking the music and actually internalizing it. So for me, it's not about just the lyrics, it's about a feel good. You know, is my audience going to like this song? Because oftentimes I'll have a set list. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other. I look at the audience and I look at their faces and I feel their energy. I'm like, nah, throw that one out, throw this one out, not, don't do that. So Jersey Bounce, it started with the song, actually. Jersey Bounce was written by a man named Bobby Plater and Tiny Bradshaw. And back in the early 80s, I remember Tiny Bradshaw being on all the local jazz scenes. He was a little guy, maybe 5'4", but he was always in the jazz clubs. And when I heard that he wrote Jersey Bounce, and there were quite a few heavy hitters that did Jersey Bounce. But for me, it was representing New Jersey and the world. And I kind of took some of the cities and took the words and put them into my song. And my arranger, Rodham Schwartz, who is a who's who in the jazz world. I mean, he played with David Fathead Newman. He played with Arthur Prysock. He played with so many people. He was the basically the inspiration for me to do what I did. And since it said Jersey Bounce, and I was even thinking about making Jersey Bounce a national anthem for New Jersey, because I don't think we have a song. I mean, I love New York, I love Connecticut, and all of the metropolitan areas, but I don't think Jersey has a song. And so that was my inspiration. And also, we have Bruce Springsteen. He's from New Jersey. I took his song Fire and just added a little bit of a twist to it. So Bruce Springsteen is in it. And even though the Beatles are not from New Jersey, they were my inspiration as well. So in this song, Evening for Two, Rodham Schwartz wrote it, and I love him, John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Happy, Pharrell Williams. In My Life, again, another tune, John Lennon and Paul McCartney. And every time I sing this song, it just brings out, it invokes a whole nother side to me, because I find it very difficult not to cry, because this song, and people love it, because you think about all the people that you've met in your life, people who have come and gone, your family, your mother, your father, your brothers, your sisters. And it's just, it's such a beautiful melody. And then I said, let's throw a blues in there. Let's do a honky tonk, mad crazy blues. So we threw that in there. And then there's, Al Green with Let's Stay Together with a different twist to it. Give Me the Simple Life. I like a simple life. Just give me tomatoes and mashed potatoes, and I'm just doing fine. And then there's Victor Young, When I Fall in Love. So, and then there's a beautiful ballad in there that Rodham Schwartz wrote called Behind the Wind. It's a love song. So this was a project of love, because all of my musicians, I consider them family. There's Kayumba Frank Lacey out of New York, Rodham Schwartz out of New York, Takashi Atsuka out of Japan, Charlie Sigler. Charlie is from Baltimore, Maryland. Rodrigo Ramirez on tenor sax, he's from Peru. And Gordon Lane, he's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So we've got a mishmash of international musicians. So that
So,
kind of,
yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
I'm hoping that the listener can take the music, the improvisation, they can internalize the lyrics. Because one thing about jazz, which is different from, say, Western music or bluegrass or Kentucky, a lot of people say, well, what is jazz? And I also taught in the Newark school system music, and I also teach a vocal workshop. And I tell them, what is jazz? It's one word: democracy. It's freedom. It's the freedom of choice. Jazz is, to me, America's classic art form, because it started here. It goes back to before the 20s. It goes back before Louis Armstrong. It goes back before all of those great musicians from New Orleans. It's a style of music. And for me, it can even go back to Africa. It can go back to the drums, even though there's a different twist on it. But if you didn't have any rhythm, you certainly couldn't be picking cotton or picking tobacco. You have to have a rhythm. And jazz for me is different, because you can format it on the beat, off the beat. You can take liberties. And with some of the music that's out, you can't take those kind of liberties. I'll sing a melody, the musicians are vamping in the background, everybody's coming out doing their own thing. But it's a matter of everybody coming back to the format of the tune. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be, and we're not all over the place. And it sounds good. You can dance to it, you can swing to it. Even if you go, for me, idealistically, I think about the 20s and the 40s. I can visualize going to New York City, going uptown, going to Harlem, and watching the highbrows, as they call them, get dressed up and go over to the Apollo and just listen to and watch them swing dance. Watch them um, just go up and down the major streets and just have a good time. That's what jazz is. It's having a good time.
Absolutely. So, what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away? Or what was the seminal show that made you think, I want to do that one day? I want to be up there doing that?
Well, for me, like I said, watching, I came along, I'm a child of the 60s. So at that point, I didn't see a lot of live shows because most of my mentors and people that I loved, I didn't get the opportunity to see them. I mean, my inspiration was also gospel. Mahalia Jackson was one of my favorites. So I watched a lot of documentaries. I watched a lot of shows, but never really got a chance to see too many of them live. And I really missed that. So I'm trying to make up for lost time. And just watching their expressions, Ella Fitzgerald blew me away at Tisca the Tasket. Billie Holiday had her own style of singing, and just listening to their tragedies and just internalizing the struggles that they have. So when I'm singing a song, a few years ago, well, some years ago, I was in an off Broadway of Ain't Misbehaving. And then I was in Nonsense off Broadway. And so I did a lot of theater. So, and people say, oh, they get nervous for auditions, for this and that. I hope I've answered your question
Yeah.
somewhat. But auditions, I love. Now, if you put me in a boardroom with 20 executives, I ain't got nothing to say. But if you put me on stage, don't give me a mic because then I just totally lose it. Singing in choirs, singing the lead. And when I'm in a choir, I just look at myself as another member of the choir, not the lead singer. But for me, I couldn't maintain that because they had rehearsals twice a week. They'd be in Brooklyn, they'd be at Rikers Island, they'd be somewhere, and I just couldn't get with that. And though then I had a regular job, I had a family that I had to take care of. So I took a little hiatus away from it. And then I said, you know what? I'm tired of this rat race. And so I decided to just step back. And when my kids got to a certain age, I was able to go on tour. I was able to have the freedom. I mean, when you work in a governmental job and you've got vacation days and sick days and personal days, by the time January came around, I didn't have any because I wanted to do something else. And then I realized that, music is what I wanted to do because I was burning the candle at both ends
Yeah.
and I was burning myself out. So I said, I'm not going to give up the music. So the day job, the 9 to 5, got to go. And so that being said, I'm a happy camper. With COVID, I know again, so many people suffered, especially musicians. I mean, if they had spouses or partners that had day jobs, then they'd have their regular salaries coming in. They'd have their medical benefits and all of that. So I know a lot of musicians that were really hurt by that. And then I look at what's happening today. I'm not going to get political about it, but things are looking very grim for national public radio, and a lot of the radio stations are getting defunded, but they're not defeated. I live in an area where one of the major radio stations is WBGO and started 47 years ago in Newark. And recently, they lost their funding, but they're not defeated. And a lot of radio stations and public broadcasts across the nation has lost their funding. So now they have to figure out, well, how are we going to recoup this? That's where my concern is with the music, with education, with teaching. But music for me is a way of life. No music, I'm not a happy camper. at all. So performing and keeping my musicians working and getting into the clubs and feeling the inspiration that I get from people. So this new release, Jersey Bounce on Arabesque Records, is really something that I have journeyed to do. I have several albums out. Jersey Bounce is one. I have another one that's a tribute to Sarah Vaughan, Newark's own. I mean, Sarah was an international star. I have another album out called Carrie Jackson, If I Had My Way. What does that mean? I do it my way, as Frank Sinatra would say.
Yep.
And then my debut tribute album was called The Nearness of You. And then Rodham Schwartz, who I mentioned before, he did something exceptional last year. I have a vocal on his album, and it's called Saxophone Quartet. Now that's very interesting. If you look up Rodham Schwartz Saxophone Quartet, it's all horns, it's all brass, and I'm singing with all these horns. So for me, that was a challenge.
Yeah. So I got to say, in regards to radio, one of the stations that I'm on terrestrial wise is WWFM Jazz on 2. It's up in New Jersey. So Neon Jazz has a home up there in New Jersey, which is nice. So
Oh, fabulous,
it's
fabulous.
good.
There's a lot of times I like to, salute the college stations. For example, WKCR in New York City, WBGO in Newark, and in Philly, which is a really hip jazz town, WRTI. But all of them are suffering
Yeah.
at this point in time, which is really sad because nobody knows where the radio stations are going, where the music is heading, which way education is going. I mean, there are so many if, ands, or buts.
Yeah. We just have to fight. We have to keep this going. And I know I'm more independent with what I do.
Yes.
So if there was ever an art form in this country that needs more people dedicated to it, it's definitely jazz. So one way or another, jazz is always mimicked the musicians, and there's always been, no matter what's going on, there's been this idea that the art form is going to spread, it's going to stay vital, and it's going to survive.
Well, I'm in the forefront of that. And I want to keep the legacy of jazz alive because oftentimes you'll hear people say, is jazz dead or is jazz alive? What's making money today is not because jazz is not alive. It's because if you look at the music, I would say the younger generation into more synthesized music. Um, they're true to their music. I did an interview on WBGO some years ago with Michael Bourne, who passed a year or so ago. And he says, well, Carrie, I said, well, what do you want me to say? You know how outlandish I can be. Can I say what I want to say? And he said, no, Carrie, just do you, be you.
Yeah.
And he says, well, what would you say to the younger generation coming along? And my response to that was, be unique.
Yeah.
Don't be a copycat. Everybody can't be a Mary J. Blige. Everybody can't be a Taylor Swift. Everybody can't be a Beyonce. So God has given these singers, the younger singers, a talent. And my thing is work with what you have.
Yeah.
Don't try to recreate the wheel. Sometimes you'll hear singers who say, oh, she sounds like this one, or oh, she sounds like that one. But when you start sounding like this one and that one, note for note, word for word, phrase for phrase, I got a problem with that because I want you to shine and I want you to show your inner self. So there's a lot of talent out there. And another thing with this generation, when I was coming along, you had to be in the clubs. You had to do the jam sessions. You had to have mentors. You had to have people that brought you out, people who sought you, who said, "Oh, she can sing. I want to put her in my band." Now you got YouTube, you got TikTok, you have all of these social medias. I mean, you can go to New York and sing in the subway and become a millionaire in 5 years. That wasn't around when I was coming along.
Yeah.
You had to go out and hone your skills. You had to have the ability to sing. You had to have mentors. You have to, I'm not saying you don't have that now, but I'm saying these younger generation, I don't know if you call them the Z's or the next generation is the whatever, the X, Y, Z's. They have more opportunities, but then they have more pitfalls. They have more pitfalls if they don't succeed. It's to me, it's not a matter of life and death. It's a matter of doing what you enjoy and doing it as long as you can and not mimicking other people. That's my pet peeve.
So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, every one of the bands stand with you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I think that collectively, my musicians are first and foremost because we're like a family. And most of my musicians, Rodham Schwartz, Gordon Lane, Takashi Asuka, I've known them for more than 25, 30 years. So their trials and their tribulations and their family is my responsibility. It's my family. But as a band leader, I have to go out. I have to meet with the club owners, go to the venues, get the gigs. My thing is keeping people working. I mean, of course, there's a plus for me working, and I'm a great promoter. I have to say that. I tell all the club owners, I use my social media. I use my website. I use everything at my disposal to get butts in a seat because I know the club owners are struggling as well, but they got to do their part. If I'm going to be out here pushing my agenda, I need some help from y'all. So it's a partnership. And even my musicians, I'm saying, I don't want to perform to crickets. How about you? If you hear crickets, there ain't nobody in the place.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I want to do. But as far as my music is concerned, I've heard from people um, that they love the music, that they love the sound. I love your repertoire, and I really enjoy performing. I enjoy singing. Like I said, the club dates, I've been over at Birdland in New York. I've been at the Village Vanguard. I've been at most of the major uh, jazz clubs in New York City and the metropolitan area. I've been to Paris. I've been on tour with other musicians, but this area is my home base. And so I try to keep jazz alive and keep the legacy of jazz alive because again, I have to say that jazz is America's classic art form. And I don't want us to lose that. I remember a few years ago, I was doing a show at NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center. And I was in a ladies' room, and these two little old ladies were in there, and they were chit-chatting, blah, 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 blah. And they said, we were talking, and I told them I'm a jazz singer, I'm a blues singer, I'm a gospel singer. And they said, you know what, we don't really care for this, and we don't care for that. And I said, okay, fine. But, go online and look up this one.
Yeah.
Go online and look up that one. After my show, I happened to go back into the ladies' room with these same two little ladies, and they said, you were fabulous. I loved your music. I said, baby, that's jazz.
Yeah.
And it was like, because everybody has their own idea of certain types of music, and it puts us a stigmatism to it. And it's not. Jazz is live music. It's America's music. We should embrace it. Even a lot of the universities, like in my area, there's Rutgers, they have a jazz program. They also have a program called the Institute of Jazz Studies. You have William Patterson, you've got Jersey City. In New York, you've got Juilliard, you've got the Manhattan School of Music, you've got Berkeley School of Music. They're going to keep the legacy of jazz alive. But it's more than book sense, because a lot of the young cats that I run into, I could be hanging out in New York at Smoke or Smalls, and I'll see these young people, 19, 20, 21 years old, they're playing their butts off. But first thing I say is, please put them iPads away. Please put them fake books away, because you've got to get it up here. Now, had this been Coltrane or had this been Miles, they would say, off the bandstand,
Yeah.
memorize the music. Don't come back until you go to the woodshed
Yep.
until you have perfected your skills.
So if anybody wants to pick up a copy of Jersey Bounce, catch you live, previous albums, where do they go?
Well, you can go to my website. It's cjayrecords.com, or you can look me up, Carrie Jackson. I'm on Spotify. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Apple Music. I'm on Amazon Music. You'll find Jersey Bounce everywhere, I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that, and this is a far stretch, but the sky is the limit, right?
Right.
I want to get a Grammy.
Absolutely.
I want people to check into your station and other stations and keep this music alive.
Yep.
And
Totally agree.
I want that New Jersey theme song to be called Jersey Bounce.
I love that. That's it. We're putting it out in the universe. Manifest destiny. Let's get it going for sure.
I thank you, Joe, so much, and I so appreciate being on your show. And I thank you for having me.
Hey, jazz fans, Joe Domino of Neon Jazz here. Proud to let you know about the triumphant return of the Kansas City Blues and Jazz Festival to Legends Field at the home of the KC Monarchs with a stellar lineup. Grammy-winning Stanley Clarke, Carl Denson's Tiny Universe, jazz master Bill Frisell, and KC luminaries Jackie Myers and Brody Buster. Tickets and more for this electrifying two-day event is found at monarchsbaseball.com, then click on special events. This October 3rd and 4th, join us as we bring magic and music back to Kansas City.